welcome to another episode of Hardly Working Through It, the show where we take a deep dive into the good, the bad, and the ugly of life, love, and labor. I'm SP.
And I'm Kelly. And today we're asking the question, are we behind in life?
And we're going to answer it as well. We're going to
asking and
answering it. This is a question that we've struggled with individually and together. We may have even talked about it at some point on one of these shows. It's a question that so many people wonder but worry about putting out there in case they find out I am behind. And I asked my friend and then they told me how far they were. And now I feel even worse. Well, we're talking about it today.
Yeah, we are.
We're digging through it.
Yep.
And the reason that it came up for us, at least for me, was I was scrolling on TikTok. And
as
I do daily, if I'm lucky. I did lose my streak recently. It was sad. I don't like that social media apps are like, you've got a streak. Because I like a good streak. I like a good gamification.
Yeah. You're good at that.
And then 91 days, by the way.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's gone. So now I feel it's because I'm an achiever. I now have failed TikTok. I'm so sorry. But I came across this video. I believe her name is Jennifer Latch. And it kind of reignited this thought for me of, am I behind, as she talked about it. So check this out and take a listen.
What I wish I knew at 30 instead of 45. You are not behind in life. Because honestly, what does that even mean? Things are not where you want them to be, but constantly concentrating on that will not make your life better. Your 30s are going to be like the caterpillar inside that casing doing all the unseen work. Raising your kids, taking care of your sick mom, dealing with financial struggles, being worried about being accepted, and trying to figure out how to make it all happen without losing yourself. But then you get into your 40s, and you sort of break out of all that, and you can fly like a butterfly. It seems cliche, but it happens. When you are in it, it feels like it'll be that way forever. But it won't. Not everything is going to work out, and some really crappy things are going to happen. But you will pull through. So no, you are not behind. You may just be beginning. And there is a lot of road ahead. Ooh, hot. I think I need to let that steep more. There's this false concept that you should come into life with everything just kind of figured out. But that is not true. You actually never stop growing. And aging is cool. That's good.
I like a lot of what she said, although it may have been the loudest version of making a cup of tea I've ever heard on the internet.
Yeah.
It was a lot of...
I think that was the point.
Was it?
Yeah. Let's let that steep a little bit more.
Yeah, I know. I was like, get it, girl. Just being a little subtle.
Yeah.
A little subtle. Ooh, that's hot.
Yeah.
Ooh, let it steep a little more.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. Like I mentioned at the beginning, so many of us think that we are behind. And apologies if you can hear that.
Is that our car?
I don't think so. Anyway, there's a car horn going off, but we're going to deal with it. A lot of people are worried that they're not in like far enough along in life. I remember when I was a kid, I grew up kind of all over Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you off the top of my head, 5, 6 different houses and cities and stuff. Moved around a lot, but I would always think, I always ended up in a house. I was always had a house. And then at some point, I had some friends that were like, we live in an apartment or whatever. And while this was not the appropriate mindset, because of my life experience, I was like, oh, well, I would never have a family and still live in an apartment. Like I'd never have kids and live in an apartment. That's not what like successful people do. And now here we are, as I would consider us successful people, still living in our condo with a family. And if I know that the version of me as a kid would be like, dude, come on. Even though the adult version of me is like, you don't understand that things are 10 times more expensive than they were when we were growing up.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of stuff from my childhood and life experience when I put it up against where I'm at right now, where I feel like, I don't know. Would my past self be excited for where I'm at? Or would that version of me be like, hey, I thought we'd be somewhere else by now?
Probably that one. The second one.
Yeah.
But what I learned, we've talked about this before when I turned 25 and all that stuff and like my thoughts and all those things. But I think as a kid, you have different expectations based off where you are than when you do as you're growing up. Because for me, at my age now, my mom and dad had a house. Mm-hmm. They had 3 kids, pets.
Do you
jobs.
know when your parents got married or started having kids like Sean and stuff?
They got married in
20s?
82.
In their 20s though? I'm not what year, but like age.
21.
They were 21?
My mom had my brother when she was 22.
Dude, we are way behind.
See, but we're not. But that was the thing. Like, that's what I always thought when I was 25. I was like, dang, like my mom and dad got married at 21. Or my mom, at least I think, was 21. And my dad, and then they had Sean when she was about 22, I'm pretty sure. But they got married in 82. Sean was born in 84.
Is there any part of like kids and family that you feel like we're behind on? I know we have a kid.
Yeah. You know, it is kind of weird sometimes when we think we talk about this, because I think if I didn't come into our marriage with you having a kid, we probably would have had our own kid instead. Does that make sense?
If we got married and I didn't have a kid already, we would have had our own kid.
Yeah, and I think that would feel different for both of us.
Yeah. In certain ways.
In certain ways. I mean, we love Brooklyn, and Brooklyn feels like mine, so I don't ever go like I am missing out on having a kid. I kind of go like she's just our kid and she's older, but like we didn't get the experience of we got married and it's been a couple of years, and so now we're going to like start a family. It's like we got married and had a family, and we're a family rather.
Yeah.
So it's weird. In some ways I feel like we're ahead, and in some ways I sometimes feel like we're behind. Just depends. As like my friends get pregnant and have kids, it's like, oh, like I never went through that stage.
Right.
And I didn't really go through the 1s and 2s stage.
Right. The newborn and stuff. Yeah.
I really remember the 4s.
Of course.
You know?
Yeah.
And like on, but.
So do you feel behind in that area?
Sometimes not though. It's weird. I don't feel behind. It's weird because I'm like, I have a 9-year-old, almost 10.
Yeah.
And so in a lot of ways, I'm ahead of a lot of my friends who have babies.
It's weird.
But I can't relate to them because I didn't have, like Simone has a
almost 2-year-old.
Almost 2-year-old. Yeah. And I'm like, I can't relate to this age because I didn't have this age. But when he gets
just that age.
3 and 4, like then I will for sure. But you know what I mean?
Back in it, baby.
But I can't relate to the sleepless nights and to the postpartum depression that any of my friends go through, or the actual pregnancy part.
You skipped all the crappy parts is what happened.
Sure. We can look at it that way.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
But I know that's something you and I talk about with some kind of frequency. We're like, what does like a family look like? And it's weird. So I'm mid-30s now, not about to be, but my next birthday will be on the other side of mid. And my mom was about my age when she had me.
Yeah.
And I was very young when I had our kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't birth her, but, and I kind of love being a younger parent. I love that our kid is almost 10.
It's weird sometimes, but
yeah. Well, it's weird because everyone else is 10, 15 years older than us, like at our kids' school and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I'm glad we did that. I don't think it's too late to have another kid or anything like that. But I also I don't personally feel behind in that area, but I was wondering if you did. I think where I start to feel more behind is the stuff like houses, like a house.
The house.
And then career, which I think to some people might be surprising. Because if you even just look at like my last, or how about our last month?
I know.
We'll talk about this next week on Hardly Working. But like you and I together, but your company did 3 gigs for 3 major studios, Spotify, NBC Universal, and then Searchlight Pictures for a world premiere in the same day.
I know.
I opened for Kelly Clarkson the week before. Like,
I know.
There's a lot of cool stuff and big stuff that we're doing, but it's weird because for me, I'm like, yeah, but I haven't gotten there yet. Like, I haven't made it. Like, I don't have my own show, even though I've shot multiple shows and pilots for shows and seasons of a few shows and been in, a featured person in some major I wouldn't say major on that network, on whatever Oprah's network was. Like, I've done a lot of that stuff. And I think part of my struggle with this feeling of not being far enough along, or more accurately being behind, is because my brain still tries to tell me that there's a destination.
Yeah.
That there's a place and a time where I will feel content and happy and like I've arrived, even though I know there's truly only one destination in life, and it's the very end. It's the destination we'll all get to at some point where we die. And every other part is just the journey. And I think that's the tricky part about life too, is whenever you hit the point where you've lived enough life, you'll understand this, which is probably most people listening to this, but you got to get there first. Truth finds you when you're ready. Is that life is a journey, and it's about the journey and not the destination.
Yeah.
Along with that, life will rarely turn out the way that you hope or expect it will. But at the same time, it's perfect and it's the way it should be because it's how it happened. And there's nothing we can do to change how we got here. All we can do is try to make those little changes or big changes if needed to try to keep going the direction that we want to go. And I think that's been a big key for me as I try to find contentment and peace and appreciation and joy with wherever I'm at or we're at, is being more happy that I'm facing and moving the direction I want to go rather than hitting the destination. Yeah. You know, to put it even more simply, if I was coming from some other random country, let's say New Zealand, why not? Because those Kiwis seem nice. Yeah. And I knew I wanted to get to America. Mm-hmm. I would try to get to America. I wouldn't hone it in specifically, be like, I have to get to Los Angeles. Be like, point me in the direction of America, let me get on the land, and then let me figure out the next steps there. And I may never get exactly where I wanted to land, but I'll get in that place, that space, that direction. And I think that's been helpful for me as I try to figure out that piece of contentment. You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah. How do you feel in terms of your business and your professional life?
I think that's a weird thing to think through because I feel like I gave 10 years of my life to a company that I thought I'd be with for a really long time. And then pivoted in my 30s as I turned 30 to do something different.
Say, were you 30 at the time?
Almost.
29?
Well, may have been 31.
2002 was 2 years ago.
So I would have been about to turn 31. Yeah. So I did it in September.
So you were 30 at the time.
But yeah, it's like a midlife crisis of sorts of like, well, I've worked my entire career towards this one thing. And now I'm like, forget that. I'm doing something different. Yeah. Partly by choice, partly because it was going to happen like anyway. But I think in this last 6 months, well, this last year has been really good, but I think these last 6 months, I feel like I'm on a trajectory that I like with the business. But I think my brain goes, okay, what's next? Because you can't do this. You can do this for a couple more years for sure. But like even Ashley May was like, what happens when you're 60? I'm like, I can't do this when I'm 60, lugging gear around, being I won't even be up with the times, you know? So I think there are pieces of that I go, I'm really proud of what I've accomplished and where I'm at and like the connections I'm making now. And like, you know, if I wanted to pivot, I think I have enough connections that I could pivot into something I might like and enjoy. Yeah. But it's weird. It's a balance. Life is a balance and you got to figure out like what is important and what's not important for you. I know that you're an achiever and like you want to make it on the screen. Like that's your thing. Right. But we talk about it all the time of like, you know, maybe we haven't made it exactly where we want to be professionally, but like, look at our personal life. How much time do we have? Yeah. And you hear this all the time from like really rich people. Where they'll say, I don't know the exact like the exact quote, but the sentiment is like, people think that being rich is how much money you have, but it's actually how much time.
Yeah, that's something that's always stood out to me. The phrase that I heard was to be rich is to have a lot of money. To be wealthy is to have a lot of time.
Yeah. And so if you look at the grand scheme of things, yes, I just had an all day gig day where I truly was working from the time I woke up to the time.
Left at 9:30, came back at 1:30 in the morning the next day.
But there was only one day. And today we're going to go see Wicked. And this weekend, we're just going to hang out and enjoy. And next week, I'm going to enjoy all of Thanksgiving week off. Like, I don't know when this is coming out, but that's my weird week. But you know what I mean? Like, and most people are having to go to work 9 to 5, are at work right now going 9 to 5. And we'll maybe get Thanksgiving off and maybe the day after.
Yeah. But, well, you also made more money, almost as much money in that one day as you did in 20 days, a full month of working at your last job. Yeah. Which is something to be said about the time and the money piece of it. Yeah. But you're right. That's something I've had to come to terms with recently. And it's been really, really healthy for me. There's been a lot of nights recently, which I would also contribute not only to us thinking through this stuff, but also you've heard me talk about it. Instead of taking 30 days off from drinking, I'm now at like 91 or something. And it has changed my anxiety by leaps and bounds. It has lowered it, almost eliminated it. And so at nights, particularly when things are starting to calm down, when, it's almost time to get Brooklyn down. It's almost time to just have time to hang and do stuff. I keep getting hit with just tremendous amounts of gratitude.
Yeah, it's
that
great.
like having been married before, and not to lower one thing to elevate another, but I know what it's like to be in a place that doesn't make sense for you, or in a relationship that's not doesn't make a lot of sense to be in.
Yeah.
And I know all of those feelings, so I can appreciate and many more that I'm trying to be kind about. But I know what it's like to not have what we have. And so I'm so grateful that, like, if nothing else, I'm spending most of my time with my best friend. And that's awesome. And then I think about our kid. I was like, she's healthy, she's happy, she's a bit weird, she's everything that I
she was
think
kind of
is
weird. I love her.
but she's freaking great.
Yeah.
And like, my mom's healthy, my sister's healthy, your parents are healthy, and your brothers. And like, there's so much to be grateful for and to find contentment in. And I think that's been a key part of this whole season and journey for me.
Yeah.
And the question that we're talking about and answering too, like, am I behind in life? I think a lot of it has to do with how you measure that. What does it mean to be behind or ahead? I had the benefit and the misfortune of being really good at a lot of things when I was really young.
Yeah.
So everyone was like, "You're so great. Here's an award. Here's a trophy." And I was like, "I am."
At least
great.
it wasn't a participation award like they do to the kids now.
Yeah, got one of
At
those
least you
too.
actually earned it.
I've also gotten most improved. I've got like a sportsmanship award, like all the stuff where it's like, you're not great. But,
I have none of those.
well,
So
you didn't do any sports.
sports.
Sports. But what that did for me was it set me up later when I became a normal aged person. I remember specifically when I was 24 or about to turn 24, I was at, it was called the intern house because of where we worked. And one of my friends came up to me and she was like, "How you doing with your birthday coming up?" And I was like, "I don't love it. I feel like now at 24, which is hilarious because it's like a decade ago. I was like, now people are going to like expect real adult stuff from me, not just like, that was impressive because he's 15.
Yeah.
Now I got real expectations." And she was like, "You'll be fine." Like
Who said that to you? Sorry.
it was Lauren.
Oh yeah.
And she's like, "I know what that feels like. You'll be fine." And she was right. I think what's hard for me is contentment only lives with me for such a fleeting moment. And that's a struggle of any achiever.
Yeah.
And
I
it's a
do know
struggle of any person. Ram Dass talks about it. He goes like, trying to satiate yourself or feel like you've arrived or you're happy or whatever is impossible.
Yeah.
Because you go like, "I'm hungry. Let's go eat something." And then you eat and you're like, "Good, I'm full. But really what I need is something sweet right now. Let's get ice cream."
get
And you get
something
ice cream and you're like, "That was good. But now I need water because I'm thirsty.
Yeah.
And now I want to go to the beach." It's like there's always another thing that your ego and your brain and stuff is going to tell you want more of, which is good in a way because it keeps pushing you forward. But also it can be the thing that mentally and emotionally holds people back.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that lack of contentment. So I've been finding, to bring it back to what we're talking about, that idea or that feeling of like, are you behind? Am I behind? I think for me, the metric that I'm starting to measure it by is how much happiness and joy do I have in my life? I don't mean like, am I going to Disneyland every day?
Yeah.
Like not that type of joy and happiness.
Yeah.
I mean, can I look at my relationships, my family, you, Brooklyn, my extended family, and go like, I'm doing a good job, as good of a job as is appropriate or possible here. Are we good here? Yes. Then the rest is kind of icing on the cake. I could tell you're freezing,
I'm
by
cold.
the way.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting over a little bit of a cold, so I apologize for the coughs and the clearing of my throat. I'm just gonna wrap myself up in blankets.
All good. We'll keep you nice and warm. I totally lost track of what I was thinking though when I was like, I have to take care of my wife. Speaking of being happy, and plus you were just covered in blankets.
I know, I told you.
She is the princess in blankets.
You were talking about your mom and your grandma. God, I look great on camera. Hopefully everyone's just listening to this.
You look like what was it in Pocahontas? There's like the tree in Pocahontas that just has a face in it.
Yeah.
That's what you look like right now.
Thank you. Would I look cute with my hair this short?
No. I mean, there's some cuteness to it, but no. Let's not do above the shoulder, slightly below the jaw length. See, that's a little cuter at the shoulder. Yeah. Anyway, back to it. I think the feeling like you're behind, most of what it does is robs you of joy. Except if you know you're behind, like if you're not asking the question, but your brain is telling you the answer, like you're behind.
Yeah.
I would actually encourage you to follow that a little bit. I've had a lot of success with just listening to what I'm telling myself internally.
Yeah.
And going like, okay, what happens if I pull that thread or if I follow that? Because chances are, if you've transitioned from, am I behind to, I'm clearly behind. You might need to make some type of change in your life to get to a place where you feel a little bit more confident, comfortable, whatever it is. But for me, at least, I don't know that anyone's really behind or not necessarily. I think we're all
just living life, doing the best that we can.
That's the thing is I think we look at people and we're like, they've probably got it figured out. In the same way that when we were kids, we looked at adults and we were like, they've got it figured out. And then we all became adults and we're like, we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, we talked about this before, but the biggest thing I learned is like, this is everyone's first time through life.
Yeah.
And that was my perspective change from my parents of like, this is their first time living too. Like they don't have it all figured out. They're learning how to have a 33-year-old daughter, just like I'm learning how to have a 9-year-old daughter. You know what I mean? Like they've never experienced that before. And so I think that's the biggest thing that changed my perspective is like, we're all just living life for the first time.
Yeah.
And making it up every day. And there are certain things we figured out, like we know how to drive a car and we know how to save money now. And we like know how to make ourselves food. But like when Brooklyn is like, I'm just having a tough time. I just need to cry it out. And I'm like expressing my emotions. I'm living it for the first time. I'm doing the best I can. But like, I don't know. And she doesn't know.
Yeah, you're right. It's a good perspective that we're all just doing it for the first time, as far as we know. Also, earlier when you mentioned like time and money and time versus money, I guess, I'm so grateful for the amount of time we get to spend with each other.
Yeah,
I think what's hard is like when you do the work that we do, it's so much dependent on what's the next gig or event coming up. So you're always feeling like you need to go run after and chase that down, which then, for me at least, makes it really difficult for me to just enjoy time with you and with Brooklyn. And I easily forget, like, why do I do any of this? It's so I can live the life that I want, which is to spend more time with you in Brooklyn. That's like truly what I want to do.
Yeah.
I've also come to terms recently just with the idea that like I've really enjoyed any and all of the success that I've had in the live event space and everywhere else. And like, if everything stopped right now and ended, like I would still be pretty happy.
Good.
I don't know what my life would be like, but like I feel like for me, I've done it. Like I'm okay. And I feel really grateful for you and for Brooklyn and my mom and sister and my family and that kind of stuff. And I can see, at least in this season, like that's what it's about for me, is appreciating those things that I do have and the things that matter. One thing I wanted to mention was you showed me something recently on your phone that speaking of being behind or not, was about what was it? How much money people have saved?
Yeah, I can read you the question. Let me just get out of my cocoon.
Out of your, I don't know, what do we call people who live in igloos and stuff now?
I'm calling it my cocoon.
Yes, but I was going to be like, you look like but I didn't want to say the wrong thing.
Don't show your.
You look like a person who lives in an igloo.
Yeah.
How about that?
Someone posted, which is funny because we talk about this quite a bit. When you talk about feeling behind, I think it's easy to be like, oh, I feel behind financially. Like where are you even supposed to be? Because for a generation that truly is pretty much an open book, we all kind of talk about everything all the time.
Yeah.
The one thing we don't really talk about is money and finances. Yeah. And it's just different now than it was before.
Yeah.
And so even some of the stuff that our parents tell us, I'm like, well, it's great advice. Just I don't know that it necessarily applies.
Yeah, I'm not going to balance a checkbook.
Yeah,
I'm not going to have checks on hand. I'm not even going to have cash on me.
Well, I do have cash on me.
Because I married a woman with cash money.
But her thing was, honest question, if you're in your early 30s, which I'm technically in my early, well, technically, you said mid, but we're early 30s. We're going to be early 30s. How much do you have saved? Like genuinely wondering how much people have been able to save in this economy with an upside down smiley face. The comments are hysterical. In the club, we all broke. That's one of them. I have $90K in student loan debt and a Sephora gift card worth $32.
Oh man, it started so strong. I was like, $90K, great.
I know. This person says every payday I move over $200. By the next week, it's transferred back into my checking account. Oh no.
My favorite one was saving.
Yeah.
Were y'all saving?
Yeah. I have concepts of a savings account.
Oh, no.
I have a lot of saved memories.
Hey, that's worth something.
I have $32.49 in my bank, $32.49 in my bank account right now, and about $13,000 in credit card debt. Just got to keep living, man.
Oh boy.
But then someone said, "Oh, this one's saved. You guys are saving." That was the one you said.
Yeah.
And then so, like there was a couple. This comment section has done wonders for my confidence. Not because I'm better off, not at all, but because it made me realize so many of us are the same. Positive vibes while we got this. But I will say this is the one that I was kind of like, oh, that's nice to hear. This person said at 30, I had zero savings and $15,000 in credit card debt. Now at 38, I have $100,000 in the bank, a 401k, life insurance, saving bonds, and a new home on acreage. Just keep moving forward.
It's encouraging and probably a lie.
But this one, and then I'll just read one more because this one is like actually someone, they're 32, which is how old I am. I have a little over $100,000 in my 401k and $15,000 in liquid funds for monthly expenditures and emergency savings. As of yesterday, I'm officially debt free.
Hey.
So, and if we want to end on a funny one, my savings account says I have to have at least $25. So $25, that's how much I have saved. But I think it's interesting to read things like that. I don't know why exactly you brought that up, but it does give good perspective because I do think that in this economy, a lot of people feel
this economy.
I know a lot of people feel behind because everything's so expensive and like minimum wage keeps going up and inflation is real and there's so much. None of us can afford a freaking house.
Yeah.
Not for lack of trying. But when a 3-bedroom house is like $1.2 million, I'm like, oh my goodness. I remember like a year and a half ago, it was in the 600,000s for a 3-bedroom house. So
yeah, and 10 years before that, it was 400. Like it's just
I know.
gotten so much bigger. To your point, you know this about me. I think life is all about perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I think oftentimes when we're feeling really out of sorts, it's because we've lost perspective or at least need to regain perspective.
Yeah.
The housing thing you were talking about really sparked something in me because I was just thinking we have no shortage of friends who have houses.
Yeah.
And who regret having houses.
Yeah. Or are renting.
Yeah.
You don't own a house. Yeah.
But what's funny is like one of our things, I think I can speak for both of us here, is like we'd love to have a house.
Yeah.
I have plenty of friends who are like, we have a house. I'd love to not have a house because
it's a lot of work.
The amount of money that just gets thrown into this house every single month, between $5,000 and $7,000 a month, especially for our friends who are renting too. Like that's just money that's gone.
Yeah, not going anywhere.
It's
not
gone.
going.
But that's what I mean about it's all about perspective. Like in this situation, I feel behind because I don't have a house. My friends who have a house feel behind because they don't have any money.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a big game of perspective, guys.
Yeah.
And I love reading that comment section because it does give you perspective and clarity. And I think sometimes we get stuck in the echo chamber of our own four walls and our own algorithm and our own thoughts.
Yeah.
And we forget that like we're all
We're all
out
just
here.
trying.
We're all doing this for the first time. I think that's the best way to wrap that up. We're all figuring it out and doing it
We're all figuring it out.
the best we can for the very first time.
You just got to find joy where you're at and find joy in the things that you're doing and stop comparing yourself to other people. I will say social media has made that worse because it's a constant comparison game every time you open your phone.
100%.
You're opening up and you're seeing all these influencers living their best life. Well, guess what? I bet you they're just trying to keep their head above water, trying to record all those videos and keep them posted and stay on top of stuff.
It's true.
And you know what? They were once probably right where you were.
They probably still are.
Some of them, yeah.
Oh boy. Well, hey, keep your chin up. Reframe your perspective if you need to. Let me tell you, if you feel like you're behind, there's areas and places and spaces that we're all a little bit behind and we can grow in and move closer towards. But like Kelly said, see if you can find some joy in your life. Find some contentment. I will tell you this. If your external surroundings feel crummy, you need to know that most of us live the majority of our life right up in our head.
Yeah.
So if you need to create a little place, space, and reality where you can be safe within the confines of your mind, do that. Develop a meditation practice, a prayer practice, something where you can just have some escapism. The world's tough and it's hard, but you don't also need to feel like you're behind in a race that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah.
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 Well, that's all for this week's episode of Hardly Working Through It. I love you.
I love you too.
And we'll see you next week on Hardly Working Through It.
Bye.
That was the lowest, like the softest, whisperest bye you've ever said.
Thanks. Because I'm sick.